What's up, you guys? Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this Operation Underground Railroad sign. If you don't know what Operation Underground Railroad is, please check it out. They're leading the fight against child sex trafficking, which is a huge problem in the world today. And they're doing an amazing job. They've saved over 4,000 children and they've arrested over 2,000 traffickers. Operation Underground Railroad is founded by Tim Ballard. He's an amazing guy, and I'm hoping that I can give this to him just to show my support. But like I said, please check them out. What they do is really incredible. I'll go ahead and link some of their stuff in the description. They got a couple documentaries and they got a website and everything. So I'll go ahead and link that. But without further ado, let's get into the project. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do is get my wood cut. So my big piece here, it's an 8-foot piece. It's the Select Pine, and this one's 3/4 inches deep by 11 1/4 inches wide. And that one, I'm just going to be cutting it in half so that I have 2 4-foot pieces. Then I got these 2 smaller ones here. These are just poplar hobby boards. They're 1/4 inch deep, 3.5 inches wide, and 4 feet long. I got 2 of them. In total, I'm gonna cut 4 pieces out of those at 22 inches. And then finally, I got some more of this Select Pine. This is just 1x2. These are also 8 foot, and I'll be using those later on for the frame. But for right now, I'm just gonna cut this guy right here in half, and then I'm gonna cut 4 22-inch pieces out of these guys. Alright, so now that I got those boards cut, the next thing that I'm going to do is make some marks on the backs of my bigger boards. So I'm going to make a mark on the top and on the bottom. On both sides, I'm going to make a mark at 1 inch, and then I'm going to make a mark at 16 inches. And that's what I'll use to line these things up. So I'll have one, I'll put them on the insides of the marks. So I'll have them at 1 and 16. And then I'm also going to get some glue between this seam. So after I glue it, then I'll just throw some clamps on there, and then I'll clamp it nice and tight. And then I'm going to glue up the backs of these real good. And then when I nail it, I'm going to use some 5/8 inch nails in my 18 gauge brad nailer. And I'll just go, just space out a couple nails down the whole board. And I'll do that on both sides. And we'll go ahead and get it all put together. All right, so we got that all put together. Might have went a little overkill on the nails, but better safe than sorry. So now we can go ahead and flip it back over. And if you got any major glue coming out the front, you can go ahead and just scrape that off right now, just so that doesn't get too dried up on there. And then once you got all that cleaned up, the next thing that we're gonna do is move on to the design. So I already kind of got mine printed out, and I had already got it taped together as well, because I actually did this. This is my second time doing this because I decided to do it a little bit differently. So with the design, I can show you real quick how to print out a design blown up like this if you're not sure how to do that. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. Alright, so the way that I blow up my images is I open them up into Paint. It's just a desktop app, and I go under File, and then I'll go under Print Preview. And then right here, I'll go under Page Setup. And then under Page Setup, you can change the Adjust to Size or the Fit to Size. So right now, mine's at 320%, or it's at 6x3 pages. And you can just go ahead and just play around with that. And then it will update it, and then you can just kind of view it here, how it's going to print out onto your pages. And then you can also change it from landscape to portrait, just so keep that in mind if you want to change it, whether you have something taller or shorter. So that's how I get mine printed out. And then once you got that printed out, so the way mine comes out, I leave my margins on there. I tried to do it before with no margins and it still printed out with margins, and it just kind of made it harder to cut out. I don't know if I did it wrong, probably, but so what you're gonna want to do is you're just gonna want to cut the margins off of one side. So as you can see on this side, my margins are cut off. It used to be like that, and then once you got them cut off, then as you can see, then it allows you to line them up real nicely like that. And then once you have them cut off of at least one of each of the seams where they meet up, then you're gonna go ahead and tape it together like I do here, where you can still see all the edges of the design, but it's just kind of taped in between just to hold it together as one big piece. I'll have to retape this piece over here because it's falling apart. And then I also have this bottom section here. So once you got those printed out, you're gonna wanna cut off the margins and get them taped together. And then once you got your design all put together and taped together and everything, the next thing that we're gonna do is I'm gonna take some of this carbon transfer paper. I can go ahead and link this in the description. And this stuff just allows you to trace something, and then it will go ahead and transfer it onto the wood. So it's gonna go, you put it dark side down, and then it will go felt side up. And what I'm gonna do is, I'll start with this top piece, and I'm just gonna kind of figure out roughly where I want it to go. And then before I tape it into place, I'm just gonna layer this stuff. I'll probably need like 5 or 6 sheets for this top part, but I'm just gonna put all those down below the paper, and then I'll tape it into place. And then once it's down, you can just take a pencil, and if you just trace over the paper, over all your outlines, it will transfer that to the wood below it. So I'll do my top part first, and then once I got that one all traced out, then I'll kind of figure out where I want this bottom piece to go. So I'm just gonna get my top one all traced out and everything. All right, so I just got done tracing it. It actually works pretty good if when you're figuring out where to put it, if you just tape your top 2 corners, then you can just lift up the bottom and just slide in all your carbon paper, and then that way you don't have to like line it up and then completely take it off. So that was kind of helpful. And let's see how this turned out. Hopefully I don't have to reuse this paper any more times. All right, so, and then I'm actually gonna reuse this transfer paper for this bottom one, just because as you can see, you only use like exactly what you draw on there, so I'll be able to just reuse this down here. So let's see how our design turned out. And I just kind of go back and forth over it. As you can see, you just kind of trace over it. So yeah, that turned out really good. Now I'm just gonna get these bottom words put in. And now that that's put in there, now I can kind of measure off of it and have a little bit of a better idea of where it's going. So I'm gonna get that put in real quick. All right, so I just got done tracing this one. So let's see how it turned out. All right, so it looks like those ones turned out pretty good. So that's how it's looking overall. And the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my Dremel. I got a Dremel 3000. And I got a flex shaft attached to it, and I got a little dust blower on the end here, and I got a 106 carving tip. So that's the medium sized one. This one right down here, 106. And what I'm gonna do is just go through and just lightly outline this stuff, just right over my pencil mark. When I do this, I just turn the Dremel on full speed, and then what I'm gonna do is just lightly go through and just make a really small groove in the wood, where all the pencil is, and I can show you real quick what it looks like. All right, so as you can see, I go in just a little bit, just enough to make a little bit of a groove in there. And I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of this stuff outlined. All right, so I just got all that outlined, and the next thing that I'm gonna do is take my palm sander here. I got some 220 grit sandpaper on it, and I'm gonna just go ahead and cruise over this whole surface because it got all scuffed up from the carbon paper, and then just to give it a nice, just even, smooth surface. So I'm just gonna sand that real quick. All right, now that we got it all sanded, the next thing that we can do is torch it. So I just got my torch here, and you can torch yours however you would prefer, but I like to do a little bit of a darker burn around the edges, and then I'll just kind of go light in the middle. But let me just show you what it looks like. And you just want to make sure you don't pause anywhere. All right, so maybe I'll do something kind of like that. It might end up a little bit different when I'm done with the whole thing, but I'm just gonna get the rest of it torched. All right, so now that we got it all torched, the next thing that I'm gonna do is start prepping for my stain. So I'm gonna do the American flag in the letters up here, or in the design up here. And then for these ones down here, I'm just gonna do all these, I'm just gonna stain them all white. But for these ones, I just got my stencil here. I'm gonna kind of use this to figure out where exactly I'm gonna have to tape it off. I can go ahead and link this in the description. So I think I'm just gonna kind of go line it up where the seam is. And then over here, I'm just gonna have it end right there. So I can kind of hold that on there, and I'm just gonna tape off. I got some of this frog tape here. So I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna tape it off right there, and then I'm gonna tape it off along this seam right here. So depending on what design you're doing, you could just kind of figure it out for yourself where you want your union. It doesn't really matter, it's kind of just a personal preference. And if you do have something that's taller, you could turn it sideways, and then you could have it go up and down, kind of like I did the cross. And then also I'm gonna want to tape off around this outside edge and then around this inside edge so that we can just stain inside the letters. So I'll probably mostly just follow the lines and then just cut it where I need to, or cut it where it'd be easy to. And then once I got that taped off, then I'll go ahead and we'll throw a coat of stain on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just tape it off real quick. All right, so now that we got that all taped off, the next thing that I'm gonna do is get some stain put on there. So for my blue, I just use, this is Varathane water-based wood stain, and it's tinted in navy blue. And I used a rag to put it on. And I'm just gonna put like 2 or 3 coats on there, depending on how dark it's coming through. You can put however many coats you prefer. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get my stain put on there, and we'll go from there. All right, so I went ahead and got my stain on there. I think I put 3 coats on there, just to give you an idea of how dark it went on. And then while I got it taped off, I'm actually gonna do the stars right now as well. So what I'm going to do is just tape this in place right here. If you are spray painting your stars, then you will just have to kind of tape that in place, and then you'll have to cover up everything around it, which is paper and tape. I'm going to carve the stars out on this one. So I'm just going to tape it in place, and then I'm just going to trace out all of the stars that are on the blue. And then after I got them traced out, I'm going to take my Dremel, but instead of using this 106 tip, I'm going to change it to the 105 wood carving tip, which is just that next lower one down, the next smaller one. And I'll use that smaller one, and I'll go through and I'll just outline them. And then I'll switch back to the 106, to the medium-sized one, and then I'll go and carve out the middles of them. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that done real quick. All right, so I went ahead and I got those all outlined and carved out. And this part's optional, but what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go through and put a coat of white stain in there. I use these little fine tip paint brushes here. So I usually use one just like this. And then what I'll do is just get a nice glob of it. And then I'll just put it right in the star, and then I'll just kind of work it around. Go ahead and add a little bit more. And then I'll just kind of push it to the edges and stuff, and I'll put it on there nice and thick, and this will just give them a little bit of a whiter tint, and I personally like the look of this better. But like I said, if you would rather not do it, then you can definitely just skip over this part. So I'll go ahead and add a little bit more to that one, and then I'm just going to go ahead and get the rest of these, just get a coat of this white stain on them. All right, so I just got my stain in there. And then now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cover up the rest of this bare wood with either paper or cardboard or something. And then what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and spray a coat of this gloss sealer on there. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna let me tape to this stuff, and it's gonna help my frog tape stick better to it, and it will help it so that it doesn't bleed as much. I've tried this stuff before and it seemed to work pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and spray a nice good coat of this on there, and then once we spray that, then we can go ahead and pull our frog tape. Alright, so I just got my sealer sprayed on there, and now we can go ahead and we can just pull all of our tape, and let's see how. So that groove in there, that's kind of like a little bit of clearance for you, because I am going to go through and recarve that after. So if you get it like in the groove, that's perfectly fine, because I'm going to go through and I'm going to make it a lot thicker and deeper. So like anything like that is going to be okay, where it's kind of down in the groove and coming up the other side just a little bit. I think it's looking pretty good already, so that's the first part of our design done. So I'm just going to go ahead and give that some time to dry, and then once it's dry, then we can start on the next step. Alright, so I went ahead and I gave that some time to dry, and now I'm going to go ahead and start on the red and white stripes. So the way that I'm going to do it is my red stripe is going to come out right at the bottom of the union as it normally would. I'll just be able to use that seam here since I did mine right at the seam. If you didn't do yours at the seam, and if you have a different design setup, just go straight out with the bottom of the union, and if you put like either a level on it or just a longer straight edge, then you can use that to continue it over. And what I'm going to do is first I'm going to tape off, I'll do all my red stripes at one time, and then I'll do all my white stripes at one time. So first I'll just tape off straight along the seam. My frog tape is a little bit thicker than 1.5 inches. I think it's like 1.88. I'll put it on the bottom side. I'm going straight out with the union right along that seam. And then what I'm going to do is once that's out, so it's going to be something like that, and it's going to go all the way across. And then I'm going to do my stripes at 1.5 inches. So I'll just measure 1.5 inches off of that. and then I'll just mark it, and I'll do that all the way across, and then I'll cut it, and then that will be for this bottom white red stripe, and then I'll measure 1.5 inches up also. So I'll go 1.5 inches above that, and then I'll make a couple marks all the way across, and then I'll put my other piece of frog tape on the top of that line. So that'll go like somewhere up in here, and then that'll go all the way across as well. And then for this one, I'm also gonna have to cut it. I'll have to cut that one at 1.5 inches, and then that will be the bottom part for my next red stripe. So I'm gonna go through and just tape off for all the red stripes. I'm also gonna be spraying the sealer between the red stripes and the white stripes. So I think what I'm gonna do first is just get all this extra space all masked off, and then hopefully I can just do my red stripes. I can spray the sealer, and then I can pull up just the stripe tape going across, and then hopefully I'll be able to just use that same tape that's covering up the rest of it. And then for the white stripes, it'll just pretty much be just covering up the red stripes. So you just tape over it, and then you just kind of cut the tape to fit the red stripe. I think the best way to cut it is usually I'll just take my level or some kind of straight edge and just hold it on there, and then just run my razor across it. And then for my red stain, this is just a mid-wax water-based wood stain, and this stuff is scarlet. And then once again, for the red, it is scarlet. The white is just white, and the blue is navy blue. You should be able to get the scarlet at Home Depot depending on which one you go to. And then if you want to get your blue from Lowe's, I believe it's called True Blue there, and that would be the Minwax. The Minwax is the Lowe's, and Varthane is Home Depot's brand. So hopefully you can find the stain colors at your local Home Depot or Lowe's. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to get my stripes all taped and stained and sprayed. I know this can be a little bit time consuming, but hopefully it turns out really good. So let's just get to it. All right, so I got all that tape pulled off, and I think it's coming along really nice. So the next thing that I'm gonna do, for these letters, I'm gonna stain these white. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those stained, and it's gonna be the same process as this. I'm just gonna pretty much tape off all the area around it and on the insides, and then I'm gonna stain them all white. And then after that, I'm also going to seal them, and then I'll pull my tape, and then after that, I'm going to tape off all of this on the insides, and I'm going to tape off all my letters, so then I can stain the whole rest of this thing black. If you like the wood look, obviously you can just stick with the wood look, and that's perfectly fine, but I want to do it all black, and I think that's going to really help to make these both pop out. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get those two stained, and we'll see how it's looking. All right, so I just got done staining my black. I actually did 4 coats on this one. I wanted it to be pretty dark, but let's go ahead and I just want to see how the color looks, the black with the red, white, and blue. The taping takes a little bit of time, but once you get into once you kind of get the hang of it and you kind of get into a little bit of a rhythm, it kind of goes quicker. And I actually didn't seal the black. I'm just gonna seal it. Since we don't have to tape to the black at all, I'll just be spraying a final seal coat over everything when we're done. Let's get some of the union pulled off so we can see how that looks. All right, I think that looks pretty good. All right, so that is how our main logo looks. I think that looks pretty awesome. I will quickly pull off this bottom lettering and then we'll see how it looks all together. All right, so that's how it looks with all of the rest of the tape pulled off. I think it's coming along really good. But then next, I'm just gonna let this black dry up all the way. It's still like a little bit wet in some spots, so I'm just gonna give that a little bit of time to dry up. All right, so I've given this some time to dry up, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and re-outline everything with my Dremel using my 106 carving tip. If you would like to, you could also use a router for this. I feel a little bit more confident with the Dremel, but if a router is something you like to use and you feel good using, you could always just use a router. So I'm gonna go ahead and just give that one more thick outline just to get rid of all the stain that went in the groove and just to kind of separate the two. All right, so now that we got that outline recarved out, the next thing that we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing sealed up, and then I'll seal the front and I'll seal the back and the sides. And then once I got that sealed up, then I'm going to get my frame put on there. So like I said, I got these Select Pine 1x2s, 8-foot sticks. For these, all I'm gonna do is just measure each side, and then whatever the measurement is, I'm gonna 45 off of that. So your measurement from outside corner to outside corner should be 1.5 inches bigger than what the actual measurement of this is, because at each corner, you're gonna want it to come out like this. So just keep that in mind when you're measuring them and cutting them. Usually I'll just cut a 45 on one end, and then I'll pull my measurement, I'll hold it on the 1 on this side, so then I can get a nice accurate measurement just like that. And then I'll pull it this way, and then I'll just add a 1 to my measurement, and then I can mark it over here. And I think for mine, I'm just gonna go ahead and torch them, and I'm gonna stain them white. Hopefully that will look good with how this is set up. But obviously, you could stain them black, you could paint them, or you could just leave them just the torched wood look. It's totally up to you. And then when I put the frame on, I just put all my pieces around it. And then I put my pieces together first. I just glue the seams, and then I'll put 2 nails in each seam. So I'll put it around the flag, and then I'll nail it, and then I will nail it to the board once all the corners are nailed together. So I'm gonna go ahead, get this sealed up, get my frame put on there, and then we just got one last thing to do after that. All right, so now that we got that frame put on there, the last thing that we're gonna do is just flip it over onto the face. And then once you got it flipped over, so for my hangers, I like to use sawtooth hangers. So I'm just gonna put 1 on either side, and I'm just gonna kind of center them on these 2 side backer strips. And I think I'm just gonna measure off the top. I think I'll do them at like 7 inches on this one. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get those screwed on there, and then we should be good. All right, so now we got those on there and we are good to go. And that is what it looks like all finished up. Please let me know if you guys have any questions down below and I will do my best to answer them. I'll go ahead and link everything that I used in the description as well. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Also, you can check me out on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a great day.
Yeah.